What's up, Dirt Junkies? Will this budget 0 degree bag keep you warm when the temperatures get below freezing? Or is it worth spending more if you're going to be in the cold? I spent several nights sleeping in both of these sleeping bags below freezing to answer that exact question. Stick around and I'll give you a walk around of both of the bags, tell you the results of my test, as well as which bag I'll be relying on when the temperatures get below freezing. Let's get into it. All right, I am excited about this one because I've been planning to test for these sleeping bags for over a month, including using 3 different thermometers to record the temperature outside the tent, inside the tent, and inside my sleeping bag so I could really see how well these sleeping bags perform. I paid for both of these bags with my own money. I purchased the Paria Outdoors directly from the company because it's not sold on Amazon. I purchased the Teton Sports Leef directly from Amazon. I have included links to both of the bags below. I'm really excited to share the test results. I think it's important for me to give you a quick walk around both of the bags. So let's do that first, and then we'll get to the test results later on in the video. The one on this side is the Teton Sports Leef 0 degree mummy bag. It's a fantastic budget bag that was part of my budget sleeping bag showdown. I'll put a link to that video right up here in this corner. And the bag in this hand is the Paria Outdoor Products Thermodown 0 degree bag. That's a mouthful. We might just call it the Paria. If there's a particular feature you're interested in, I'll put bookmarks in the description below, so feel free to skip to whatever it is you're looking for. First, let's talk about the size of each of these bags. First up, the Teton Sports Leef. This bag is pretty tall at about 87 inches and also fairly wide. At its widest point on the website, it says 33 inches. I measured about 32. And then at the narrowest point, it says 22 inches, but I measured, I think, 18 or 19. It does have one smaller size, but that wasn't going to work for me. I'm about 6 feet tall. I got the regular size 87-inch tall bag. The Paria, on the other hand, is only 80 inches tall, so it's about 6 inches longer than a 6-foot tall person. The Paria is also a little bit narrower. It's listed at about 31 inches at its widest part, and then the narrowest part is also about 18 inches. So the Paria is definitely shorter and more narrow than the Teton Sports Leef. The Paria also does come in 2 other sizes. This is the regular size that's supposed to work for individuals up to about 6 feet tall. There's a shorter size for those 5'6" and under, and a taller size for those up to 6'6". When it's cold outside, you want your bag to fit around you really well to prevent any extra air or space in your sleeping bag. That's just more air that your body's gonna have to try to heat up. Now let's talk about one of the most important things in a 0 degree or a winter sleeping bag, and that is the insulation. When you're looking for a budget winter sleeping bag, it's very likely that you're not going to get real down. That's the case with the Teton Sports Leef. Now, there's nothing wrong with synthetic down. It is typically heavier to get the same warmth and doesn't pack down as tight as regular down. So the Teton Sports Leef has a synthetic insulation. The Paria sleeping bag, on the other hand, does use a 700 fill power duck down. The insulation has not been treated with a hydrophobic coating. It's not something I'm necessarily concerned about, but something important to note, so I wanted to make sure I mentioned it. And another quick note on the insulation is how much does this loft up? The more loft you have, the more likely that that bag is going to keep you warm. So when you're looking for a 0 degree bag, it's important to know how much loft you're going to get once you lay that bag out. Now, I wanted to compare these 2 bags side by side. I laid them out for hours and then measured them. It looks like the Teton Sports Leef was about 4 1/4, 4 1/2 inches. The Paria Outdoors bag had a higher loft height at about 5 3/4 inches. Next up, let's talk temperature ratings. There are official temperature ratings for sleeping bags. It's called the EN rating or the ISO rating. These ratings were developed so that consumers could really compare apples to apples when looking for sleeping bags. After a bag goes through these standardized tests, it's given 3 temperature ratings: a comfort rating, a transition rating, and a limit rating. The temperature that's advertised on a bag could be any of those 3, or if it hasn't gone through these standard tests, then the company is just giving their best guess or best estimate. We know that both of these sleeping bags are advertised as 0 degree sleeping bags. I can tell you that the Teton Sports Leef has undergone the standard ISO or EN test. The comfort rating on the Teton Sports Leef is actually 34 degrees Fahrenheit or 1 degree Celsius, so just above freezing, and the limit rating is 23 degrees Fahrenheit or -5 degrees Celsius, so below freezing, but again, that's the limit rating. So those are the ratings on the Teton Sports Leef. What about the Paria Outdoors Thermodown? The Paria Outdoors bag has not undergone the standardized EN or ISO test. They cite on their website that this is because they're a small company and they can't take on that expense, but they have tested their sleeping bag thoroughly and feel that 0 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 17 degrees Celsius is a comfort rating for this sleeping bag. So those are the temperature ratings on the Paria Outdoors and the Teton Leef. Now let's talk about the materials that each of these are made out of. The Teton Sports Leef is actually a 40D nylon on the outside, so a little bit thicker than what you'll see on some other bags. And then on the inside is what they call a brushed polyester. It's hard to describe, but it's a much softer feeling than a typical sleeping bag material. What about the Paria Outdoors bag? It is a 20D nylon on the outside, so it's a little bit thinner material than what's on the Teton Sports Leef. And then the inside is a pretty similar material as well. It feels basically the same as the outside. They say it's a 320T polyester, but it's that slippery feeling that you're probably used to on sleeping bags. The outside and the inside basically feel the same. We'll talk about how that impacted the testing of these sleeping bags when we get to the test results later. Have I said that enough already? Let's talk about weight. The Teton Sports Leef is advertised at 4.2 pounds, so that is pretty heavy if you're planning to use this as a backpacking sleeping bag. As with all things in winter backpacking, your gear is going to be a little bit heavier because it just takes more material to keep you warm in those types of conditions. I'll show you on the screen what it weighs in at on my scale. The Paria Outdoors bag comes in significantly lighter at just 3 pounds. Down is awesome and expensive because it is light and warm. Synthetic fill just cannot match the warmth to weight ratio that real down can provide. All right, I also want to show you what the bags look like packed up so you can see the size comparison of the two bags. But before I put these sleeping bags back in their stuff sacks, let's talk about a few other little features that I think are important to note. First are the zippers. The Teton Sports Leef bag does claim to have anti-snag zippers. In testing them, they seem to work just fine. One little thing that I will note is that there is a zipper on each side. You've got a zipper on the outside of the bag as well as one on the inside. Also, the Teton Sports Leef has a zipper at both the top of the bag as well as down here at the bottom. That can be really nice because if your temperatures don't end up getting very low and you're getting really warm in your bag, you can just unzip the bottom, kick a leg out. Makes a big difference in being able to regulate your temperature. The zippers on the Paria Outdoors are similar. It's actually a YKK zipper. It seems to be a quality zipper that works well. It is different than the Teton Sports Leef because rather than having two pulls, it just has one that flips from the outside of the bag to the inside. The Paria Outdoors bag does also have a zipper at the bottom as well. One thing that the Teton Sports Leef has that the Paria Outdoors bag does not is this little zipper pocket, which is a really nice feature. One feature where I will say that the Paria Outdoor Products does have the edge is the draft collar. The Teton Sports Leef does not have a draft collar. This is what's inside the Paria Outdoor Products. So when you're laying in the sleeping bag, this can go right over your shoulders and is supposed to prevent air from escaping your sleeping bag. A couple other quick things to note. Both of them do have a cinch cord, and the last little feature I'll mention before we put these in the stuff sacks are the hanging loops. Both of them have hanging loops for storage if that's how you prefer to store your sleeping bags. The Teton Sports Leef has 3 right there at the bottom, and the Paria Outdoor Products has these 2 loops right here. Whew. All right, so I've got both of the bags packed up here so you can see what they look like inside their stuff sacks. Here's the Teton Sports Leef on this side, and this is the Paria Outdoor Products. Teton Sports says that this bag packs up to 15 inches tall by 9 inches wide, and that's probably about right. And then Paria Outdoor Products says that this one packs up to a smaller size of 11 inches tall and 8 inches wide. Now, you could probably get this down to 11 if you were to really compress it. Right now, mine's a little bit taller than that, but there you go. Finally, let's get to the results of the test when I slept in both of these bags in sub-zero temperatures on consecutive nights. When I did these tests, I actually put a thermodrop outside so I could record the temperature outside, as well as one inside the tent so I could see how cold it got in the tent, and then one in my sleeping bag so I could monitor the temperature within the bag. Although I have used both of these sleeping bags on backpacking trips, I wanted to make sure that the conditions were consistent. So I set up a tent in the backyard and then planned to sleep in these bags on consecutive nights so I could really compare similar conditions and get an idea for which bag I feel like is going to keep me warmer. I actually used a Paria Outdoors sleeping pad as well. It has an R value of 4.7. It's important to note that when you're getting a winter sleeping bag, you really need a good higher R value sleeping pad underneath you to insulate you from the ground. Otherwise, the sleeping bag is not going to do you any good. The cold ground is just going to suck all of your body heat right out from underneath you. Enough of that. Night number 1 in the Paria Outdoor Products Thermodown 0-degree sleeping bag. I set up the thermodrop outside. It was 32 degrees when I got in the tent to go to bed. I got in my sleeping bag and I waited 30 minutes for my body heat to kind of warm up the air within the sleeping bag before I turned on the thermodrop inside of my sleeping bag. I did that because the thermodrop will actually not only tell me the current temperature, but also record the high and the low. If I had chucked it in there as soon as I got in the sleeping bag, the low probably would have been below 70 degrees, maybe even close to freezing, because that's what the temperature was inside the tent. I wanted to know how cold it got after I warmed it up with my body heat. So I waited 30 minutes, turned it on, and put it in my sleeping bag. I actually slept really well in this sleeping bag, and so the first time I woke up to check the temperature was at 4:30 a.m. The thermodrop inside my sleeping bag was reading 88 degrees. It was balmy inside of the Thermodown 0-degree bag. When I checked the max temperature, it said 91 degrees, and when I checked the minimum temperature, or the lowest it had gotten the entire time it was in my bag, it read 73 degrees. That's probably what the temperature was when I turned it on within the bag, and then it warmed up to 80s, 91, and then never got below 73 after I initially put it in my bag. So that was really cool to see. I could not believe that it was 88 degrees. When I got out of bed at 7 a.m., I checked the thermodrop again and it was reading at 82 degrees. So roughly the same temperature, still nice and warm in my sleeping bag. The high was still 91, the low was still 73. So it was really kind of hovering in that 80-degree range the entire night within this sleeping bag. Got down to 27 degrees outside, got down to 32 degrees in the tent. It's usually a little bit warmer in your tent when compared to the outside temperature, but it never got colder than 73 degrees in my sleeping bag. And every time I checked it, it was actually in the 80s. So this bag passed the freezing temperature sleep test with flying colors. I also want to mention a few other things that I noticed when sleeping in this sleeping bag. The first one is that draft collar. Remember I mentioned that the Paria bag does have a draft collar. It fit really well around my shoulders, and I could really feel a difference between the temperature on the inside of that draft collar versus the temperature on the outside. The other thing I should mention is I never felt like I had to cinch up the sleeping bag around my neck. So that's how the test went with the Paria Outdoor Thermodown 0-degree sleeping bag. Let's talk about the Teton Sports Leef. If you're still watching and can appreciate me sleeping in the backyard in these sleeping bags over Thanksgiving weekend, mind you, do me a big favor and hit the like button below. I would super appreciate it. All right, let's talk about the Teton Sports Leef. I went to bed, wore the same thing as I had with the Paria. I set the thermodrop outside, got in the tent, got in my sleeping bag, waited 30 minutes, and then put the thermodrop in my sleeping bag. The first time I woke up, it was 78 degrees in my sleeping bag, which isn't bad, not as warm as the Paria Outdoors bag. My max temperature within the bag was 83 degrees, and the low was actually 68. So a little bit cooler than the Paria Outdoors. I checked the temperature again a little bit later. It was 73 degrees in the sleeping bag, so a little bit cooler. And then again at 6:44, I was actually pretty cold. I wasn't planning to get up until 7 o'clock. But I was cold in this sleeping bag. When I looked at the thermodrop, it still read at 72 degrees, but I felt cold. I got up, checked the thermodrop on the outside. It was 30 degrees when I got up, so just a couple degrees warmer than the Paria Outdoors test, and it had gotten down to 29 degrees. So not a big difference when compared to the night that I slept in the Paria Outdoors bag, but it was significantly colder within the sleeping bag, even at a similar temperature outside. So let me tell you about a few of the things I noticed with the Teton Sports Leef. One was lack of draft collar and the really wide shoulders. Now I think I have pretty wide shoulders anyway, but the Teton Sports Leef feels really wide. I actually cinched up the cords around my shoulders during the night to try and trap some of the heat in. A draft collar or narrower shoulders could make a big difference for the Teton Sports Leef. The other thing that I noticed is that brushed poly flannel, while it feels really nice, it makes it super hard to turn over in the sleeping bag. When I wanted to change positions, go from my back to my side, it was basically impossible, especially pairing that with the base layer I was wearing. It felt like Velcro inside of the sleeping bag. The other thing I noticed is that it just felt too long for me. I could feel some empty space at the bottom of the sleeping bag in the foot box because it is 7 inches longer than the Paria Outdoors bag. So that was my experience with the Teton Sports Leef. Now let's talk about how these two bags compare to each other. When we're talking simply about the tests, I was definitely warmer in the Paria Outdoors 0 Degree Thermodown. It was 10 to 15 degrees warmer within this sleeping bag when compared to the Teton Sports Leef, even though the temperature outside was just a little bit warmer the night that I slept in the Teton Sports Leef. I would have hoped that this bag would have performed a little bit better. After all, this bag is advertised as being a 0 degree bag or being able to go down to freezing temperatures. Let's talk about what I liked and didn't like about both of the bags. First up, the Paria Outdoors 0 Degree Thermodown sleeping bag. What I really like about this bag is that it is still fairly budget friendly for a 0 degree bag at just $165. And at that price range, it is pretty light at just 3 pounds and has a lot of other great features. Actual duck down, that draft collar made a really big difference in the test. The fit for me is perfect, and I like that it comes in 2 other sizes. So if you're a little bit shorter, you can get the small size. If you're a little bit taller, you can get that longer size and get a fit that works really well for you in the 0 Degree Thermodown bag. As I said, the weight of this one is much better at just 3 pounds. It performed really well at sub-zero temperatures, and overall it's just a good quality bag. I really like the bag. It kept me warm and it's not too heavy. Some things I didn't like about this bag are, first, it would be nice if it had a zipper pocket on the inside. I feel like that's becoming fairly standard. But more importantly, I would appreciate if the down was treated to be water resistant. Next up, the Teton Sports Leef. The first thing I love about this bag is it is so budget friendly. I got this bag for just $55, which is fantastic for a 0 degree bag. I think the price on Amazon is currently $75. It seems to float between $55 and $75 depending on when you look. Also, this bag is effective at low temperatures with additional layers. I also really like that it has that zipper pocket, but unfortunately when comparing these two bags, that's really all that I have to say about the Teton Sports Leef. In the future, I will be relying on the Paria Outdoors 0 Degree Thermodown bag. The Teton Sports bag is just too heavy and doesn't go cold enough for me to trust it when the weather can change so fast and it can get cold quickly. This can still be a great bag. It might be just the bag that you're looking for, but for me, it's going to be the Paria Outdoors 0 Degree Thermodown. Remember, life is better with some dirt in it. Let's try one more time. Stop it. Dang it. Oops. Paria Outdoors Products. I just spit everywhere. Paria. I'm losing my voice. I need some water. Okay, what am I? I'm not very organized here. Yeah. Hopefully we're done.